Hey guys, welcome back. Now, if you remember from last time, we were doing timer mapping and putting in scenes into our sequence. So now what we're going to be doing is focusing on our pattern crop and transitions from clip to cinematics. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so what we're going to do is, from start of the cinematic, we want to go into the clip, and to do that, we want to usually zoom in and try and get it to flow with the clip. Now we want to go 5 frames back on the cinematic and click S, and now we want to make sure we have motion blur on, and now we want to navigate all the way to these little boxes and click the second one. And what this does is it enables motion blur for the clip, and you'll see why we need that later on. So what we want to do is click on the stopwatch, and that will create a keyframe. And now what we want to do is go to the end of this cinematic, and you'll start to see the next clip, but don't worry about that. What we'll do is now zoom in and go to about, I usually go to like about 190 and about that range. And now, as you can see, it's got this sort of motion blur going on. See, without it, it doesn't really have that, but with it, it's got this motion blur. And now what we want to do is highlight these keyframes, click F9 or do easy ease with the right click and keyframe assistant. Go into our graph and our graph editor, and we want to make a sort of graph where it goes in really quick. So the left one goes forward. While holding shift, you can make it accurate, so hold shift and move it to the right so it's accurate. While the right one, we want to put it all the way down, almost not too sharp though. We want it to be at least at that amount. So now what that will do is that will zoom in pretty fast. It's a bit hard to see, but you'll see it a better result when you do the next clip. So as you can see, we're zooming into the next clip. So what we want to do is make the clip, this clip, zoom from out to in. This is usually with everything else, you want to make sure you have your motion set. So if this is going from zooming out, you want this to zoom in to zoom out. Anyway, so before we zoom this out, we're going to add motion tile. Now, I do recommend you guys get the FX console plugin. It's pretty helpful. All you have to do is click Control Space, and you can just search up your presets and effects. So we want to put motion tile, and we want to change output width and output height. So we're going to change them from 100 to 333 and 333. And we also want to tick mirror edges. So now we're going to make a keyframe for scale, zoom out, and what that's going to do is going to add this. It's going to look like this. Now if we turned off mirror edges, it won't look as good when you zoom in. So we're going to turn that on, and then go about 5 frames forward, 4 frames, make a keyframe and zoom in to 100. And now we're going to highlight the keyframes, F9, click one of the keyframes, go into graph editor, and we want to make we want to make the graph look like this, where we put the top one all the way to the left, and the bottom one we drag it up, and it looks like this. Your graph should look like this. So now what's happening is when, and don't forget also to turn on your motion blur. So now if we have a look, it zooms in the cinematic and it zooms into the clip, and if we play that back, yeah, it's very subtle, but it makes a whole world of difference. Okay, so we've done that first transition, and now what we want to do is move on to the other ones where it is after the kill, and we have these cinematics. Now what we want to do is pay attention to the movement of the cinematics. Here this one's going backwards while this one's going forwards and looking upwards. This one is moving forwards while this one's also moving forwards. Now our zoom ins and our zoom outs and even our positioning will rely on those movements of the cinematic. So from this clip to the next clip, we want it to zoom out to out. Otherwise it won't make sense if this clip zooms into this going outwards, backwards. What we want to do is go at least 5 frames back make a scale keyframe, go to the end of the clip, and zoom out to about 41. And also don't forget to add your motion tile in, and put the output width to 300 and height to 300, and tick mirror edges. Then highlight both keyframes, and making sure your graph looks like this. It will look different depending on which part of the clip you're up to, and also don't forget to turn on your motion blur. So if you see it, you can sort of see it in motion. The more you bring it outwards, the scale, the more effect it will have on the clip, the more it will look zoomed out. If you want to have that effect and make it look like it's zoomed out a lot, you just bring out the scale a good amount. Now for this clip, since it's going zooming out, we want to start with a scale of zoom. We want to start the clip being zoomed in. So we want to go to about 152 and make sure you have this on so it has the keyframe, and go to about 5 frames, I'd say. And instead of having to type in or drag it all the way to 100, click on the clip and click Control Alt F, and that will automatically position the clip to the composition, which is 1920 by 1080. So instead of having to drag it all the way to 100, you can just click Control Alt F. Now highlight both keyframes again, and we'll do this. We want to make it look like this, because if we make it this graph, what will happen is it will start slow and then it will come out afterwards. But we want it to come out fast. We want it to come back fast. So to make it have a greater effect, let's just zoom it in more. And as you can see, it zooms out from this clip, so it has a flow. So let's just have a quick look at that. Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. So now we're going from this clip to a forward motion, and what we want to do, since it's not too forward, it's more of the position. We want to, instead of using scale, we want to click on the clip and click P for position, and we want to keyframe that and go about, since you want to actually see this more, go 1 frame before the next clip and hold the clip on the screen. What you want to do is grab the clip right here and drag it downwards to the right, because it's gonna go in a motion that will follow this clip. So, and make sure also to always have motion tile on your clips if you're doing scale transitions. And yep, perfect. So, and then we drag this keyframe onto the end, and then we do our typical keyframes. Now with position, when you go into your graph, it will look like this. Do not freak out. All you have to do is you can go into right click on the graph and go into edit speed graph, and now what that will do is it will look like this, and all you have to do is just move the left one all the way to the left and the right one all the way to the left as well. So what that will do is that will you want to move the right one all the way to the right and the left one all the way to the right. So what that will do, it will slowly increase the speed of the position moving to the right. So yeah, and just to make it a bit faster, we're going to drag the keyframe a bit, like 2 keys forward. So now we've got that motion, and we want to follow this motion going downwards. So we're going to get this cinematic, go into position, keyframe it, grab the clip and drag it from the top left. So we're gonna go, so the motion is going from, we're going in this motion. You'll see it, the final result, but we're gonna now go to the end of, we're gonna go 4 frames ahead, Control Alt F, and make sure your motion blur is always turned on. And what's gonna happen is, as you'll see, this is the motion we're gonna go for, and just to save time, you can copy the motion tile effect on your previous clip and paste it onto this one. So now as you can see, the motion that it's following matches the cinematic, so you have that flow. Now obviously we want to go into our graph editor, easy ease the keys, and we want to do, this time we want to make it the left one go all the way to the left and the right one all the way to the left as well. Make sure you're always in speed, and for when you want to go back to value, don't forget to right click and go to edit value. This will only be for scale, your scaling, not for your positioning. Your positioning is for your speed graph. Alright, so it should look like this now, right at the moment. This is what it should look like. It's looking good so far. So now what we're going to do is, it's going in a forward motion. So we're going to go 5 frames, 4 frames about. Back, click S, make a keyframe, go forward, zoom in to about 180, and then highlight both keys, and it's just rinse and repeat. Now see how the scale looks like this, but what we want it to look like is that we want it to be in the value graph. So make sure it's changed to value graph, and hold shift when you're dragging it this way so it's locked on, and then let go of shift and drag this one down. So it should look like this. I'm zooming in, and then from here we want to paste in that setting before for motion tile. Click S and then make a keyframe, zoom out, go 4 frames forward, Control Alt F, highlight the keys, and then we want to make this graph. Oh, and also motion tile. So it should look like this so far. Perfect. Don't forget, you don't always have to do scale transitions. You can just go you can be creative. You can do anything you want, you know. It doesn't always have to be like this where it's scaling in. I'm just gonna quickly change this to 360. Okay, so what you can do also, you can add in a blur effect. So I'm just gonna add that right now. So what you want to do now is click Control Alt T, and that will add in a adjustment layer. And we don't need the whole, obviously we don't want the whole adjustment layer, so we want to do the whole length of it. So what we're gonna do is cut from the left, go about 5 frames to the left and cut, and then go about 5 frames to the right, 4 frames about, and cut, and delete the right side. And what we're gonna do is add in a lens blur, BCC lens blur. Make sure, so like I said, make sure you have the BCC plugin installed. There are plenty of YouTube videos that you can watch online, tutorials to help you to install them, so I recommend you watch that before you go into install it. Alright, so we have our blur in here, and what we want to do obviously is have the iris scale at 0, and go into the iris settings and put this to circle, put the bokeh to about negative 20, and keyframe the iris scale. Now what we want to do is zoom in a bit, go to the middle of the clip between these 2 clips, and put the iris scale to about 8. And then what we want to do is go to the end and put it to 0. And now what we're going to do is open up the adjustment layer. Now what we're going to do is open up the adjustment layer, go into effects, go into the BCC plugin effect, and we're going to highlight all the keyframes, F9, and go into the graph editor. And the graph we're going to aim for in this one is we want it to come in fast and then go out slowly. So we're going to make it go like this, drag the top one down a bit, and then it's going to look a bit different depending on how you want it, you know, it's just how you want your style to be. So it should look like this about. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna actually, what we'll do is bring this back a bit so you can see the blur happening at the start. So what it does is it goes fast and then it fades out. So if we have a look at all of the transitions that we just did, Yep, so it looks pretty good. Yep, we're just gonna fix it a bit. We want it to come out a bit faster, the blur. So what we're gonna do is go back into the graph editor and just put this down a bit like this. Perfect. Alright, so we've done the transitions. Now what we're gonna do is move on to the pan and crop. So let's go back to the first cinematic, and what we're gonna do now is what I usually do is I pre-comp the clip, because since we can't really pan and crop it while it has a transition with scale on it, what we're gonna do is pre-comp it. So right click on the clip, pre-compose, make sure you have both of these ticked, and don't worry about the name, and just click OK. Now we're gonna go to the start of the clip, click S, hold shift, and click R and P. Now we have our scale, rotation, and our position. And what we're gonna do is click on all these keyframes and focus on, with pan and crop, what we want to do is think about the way we want the clip to look. Now, how we're gonna make it flow is see how the camera is moving the right forward position. What we want to do is increase the scale. We don't want to go overboard like this. We want to at least so you can see the skin still. Move the position about left a bit. We want to center the skin at the same time and rotate it to the left so it looks like it's got a forward motion. Okay, and what we want to do is drag all these keyframes and put them at the end, and now it should look like this. Doesn't look the best, but what we're going to do now is obviously highlight all the keyframes and then the graph we want to aim for. So for position, we want to put it like this, and then for scale, I want to go into values and have it like this, and for the rotation we want to have it the same, but see how it's opposite. It looks like it's the opposite direction, but all we have to do is just pull it down and pull this one to the left just for a bit. Now with doing that pan and crop, it should look like this. Yep, not too bad, but what we want to do, scale is a bit too much, so we're just going to reduce the scale by a bit, and we're going to put the position down and scale it in. Yep, perfect. And yeah, so it's going to be a lot of trial and error. You just want to, play around with it and make sure you get the perfect fit for you and your style. So yeah, that's looking good. The rotation's a bit too sharp, so what we're going to do is lower this by a bit and drag this backwards. Actually, hold on, put the left one down. Yep, looking good. And the position, always want to make sure that it's very sharp. Okay. Good. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to the clips with the pan and crop. For the start of the clip, what we want to do is pre-comp it, pre-comp the clip, and click S. And since this goes in, you want it to zoom in just a bit, and also hold shift and click P while doing that, so you have your position. Go to the start, and we want the character to be a little bit in the middle, let's say, and just drag that to the end and highlight both the keys. And we want to do this graph for our position and scaling this. Looks good. Alright, now we want to also focus on the pan and crop for the before kill and after the kill. So let's go to the just before the kill, as we made that cut earlier. Click S, make a keyframe. You don't have to worry about pre-composing, as it will do it automatically. You'll see why we don't really need to pre-compose the clip. So now we go on the kill, make a keyframe. We want to zoom in just like by a bit, I'd say. Maybe, yeah, by a bit. And then go to the graph. We want to pull this one up, drag it to the left, the top one, while we do the opposite for when on the kill. So it should look like that. So what's happening is it zooms in, and then when it gets the kill, it zooms out. Perfect. So we've done the start, and now we move on to the other cinematics. What we want to do for this one is, so click S and then up. Yep. Actually, what we want to do is pre-compose the clip. Then click S, hold Shift, R and P while holding Shift. Highlight all the keyframes. Now this one is going from in to out, so we want to make it more zoomed in for the pan and crop and make it a bit centered, and the rotation left. So we're going to go from left to right. Now so that's how it looks a bit weird. Now what we're going to do is zoom out. We don't have to go all the way to 100. Zoom out, position this, and make this more. We want to just center the skin. Like that. Perfect. And then drag this to the end. Highlight all keyframes. And maybe focus on doing this. Alright. So this is just as an example for when it's when this cinematic goes from in to out. Because usually it's a lot of cinematics going from up, down, left, right, and back to forward, but we're gonna make it a bit different. So rotation, scale. Yep. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna do the rest of the cinematics with the pen and crop, so I will see you soon. Alright, so now we've done all the the pen and crop for everything, so let's have a quick look and see what that looks like. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. Now what we want to do next is add our black bars for our cinematics. So what you're going to do is go ahead and click or Control Y, and what that will do is add a black solid, and we click OK. You don't have to change any settings. Now go into your effects and add in CC Jaws. There's no presets or anything for, like, no plugins. You don't need any plugins for this. This will be in the program itself. Now we're going to go to the complexion, put this to 83. That's what I usually put my cinematic bars at, and the height, put it at 0. So now, as you can see, you have your cinematic bars, and what we want to do is obviously we want to animate it so it's not always on the clip and it's only just on the cinematics. So what we want to do is cut the left bit off and go to just about where it starts transitioning from this clip to the next clip. And what we're going to do is open it up, go to the CC Jaws, go to complexion, keyframe it, and go about 3 frames in, and just make it to 100. So what we'll do is, see, as you can see, the black bars animate out of the clip into the perfect. Now what we're going to do is move along and go to where the next cinematic happens. Go to where it starts transitioning, make another keyframe, and go to where the cinematic happens. Go 2 frames ahead, 2 to 3 frames ahead, and then, as you can see, let's put the black bars there. Perfect. All right, so now let's have a look at it with the black bars. Perfect. All right, so we've just done panning, cropping, adding the bars, and doing the transitions. So I do hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope it was very useful and helpful. If you have any questions, maybe there was a step that I didn't explain properly or anything, just feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll be looking at all the comments and answering your questions, so don't forget to ask away. And for next time, we'll be putting in effects, we'll be doing compositing, and all the little details added into the Taj. So looking forward to that, and I'll see you next time.